Will Eury Perez live up to his ace upside in 2026? And are we buying into Kyle Stowers' late age breakout? We're talking those names and more as we cover the Marlins on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino, here as always with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew. As you can see if you're watching on YouTube, and if you are watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It's going to subscribe to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things, once again, please make sure you're subscribed. And if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you left for us as well. And this time of year, you're going to want to join us on the Insider's Track, where fantasy baseball season never ends. This time of year, we're talking keeper, dynasty. I got my 2026 rankings in the works, and we're going to be doing giveaways. We're going to be doing so much on the Insider's Track. You're never going to want to leave us. It's link is in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And all right, guys, listen, we're doing Miami Marlins today. Eury Perez, interesting season. You know, he showed the flashes. The talent was there. Results, a little bit of a mixed bag. Sandy Alcantara, a little bit of a wily vet. Down year for him. Are we still buying in 2026? Same thing with Kyle Stowers, breaking a little bit of a breakout season. Are we buying into him at an age-27 breakout? Augustine Ramirez, a young catcher, looked pretty good. And then we got a couple of top prospects for you in Thomas White and Robbie Snelling. So today we're switching up. We're doing arms first. Then we're going to go into some bats. And then we got the top prospects lined up for you. You're not going to want to miss this episode. But, Matt, what pitcher are we going with first today, my brother?
I guess we'll start with probably the biggest name on the list, and that's Eury Perez. Eury Perez came back from, Tommy John after not pitching all of 2024 and getting injured in 2023. And, had his ups and downs ultimately, right? Like one really solid month in July where he posted a 1.29 ERA through 28 innings and had 32 strikeouts. Everything else was kind of struggles up and down, but ultimately the performance on the mound, I feel from watching him and seeing the underlying stats, reveal a different story and tell a different story that the young pitcher actually did versus what the stat sheet is actually saying, right? You look at, the 4.25 ERA and you're a little disgusted. You look at the 95 innings and versus the 105 strikeouts and go, that's encouraging. And then the 105 whip, that's also encouraging. But is there actually an upside for at a lower ERA? And my take is absolutely. Look, the expected ERA was a 3.27. Hands down right there. That's really where his ERA probably should have been. Then you break it down, you look a bit more. Even his FIP was a little bit lower too at a 3.67. That's a pitching indicator if you had an average defense behind you. And you mix those two together, it's consistency. Then you look at how often he struck out guys, which was 27.3% of the time, and a league average of 8.3% walk rate. Those are solid numbers. Quite honestly, you look at it, you go, okay, is it repeatable and does he get himself in trouble? Well, he doesn't walk guys enough to really make him have base runners in blow up situations. Then you look at the fact that he strikes out guys, which means even if he gets in a pickle, he can most likely strike them out. He gets guys to whiff at an incredible rate, even gets guys to chase at 28.4, right under, being elite at the category. And, quite honestly, his blazing fastball at 98 miles an hour really just gets the job for him. Now, where is the categories I think that he should improve in, right? Specifically, not giving up as much hard contact or barreling, which is pretty much quality contact. He can get that back to on track to where he was in 2023. The barreling, not so much, but at least the hard contact came down at a little different rate. But we'll work on that. Ultimately, this young pitcher that just loves to strike everybody out of the day needs to learn how to produce ground balls, not give up hard contact as much or quality contact. And I think there's a way where he could finish as an SP1. Might take a couple years. Where do I see him in 2026 specifically? Top 24 pitcher with ease. I honestly think I'll probably be drafting him as, a strong SP2 like probably pitcher 15 or 16, if I'm really being honest, because this kid has upside. He's already proved it. And last thing to come back is the control from Tommy John, like we preach. And you're starting to see that in certain spots, and then certain ones are not. With a whole offseason behind him, Eury Perez is primed to have a phenomenal 2026 campaign.
Matt, phenomenal breakdown on Eury. I'm with you. I think he does. You said has the upside of a top 24 starting pitcher. I don't think we're gonna have to pay that price in 2026. I got the rough draft of the 2026 rankings going here. I have Eury Perez at SP 30. I think that's a fair shot for him. And finished the season strong. So he when he came back, he looked really good for his first. Let me backtrack here as I had this pulled up. I think it was just like first 5 or 6 starts. Here we go. I actually do have it right here. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, first 6 starts for Eury Perez through August 2nd. Looked really good. Had a rough stretch where he had like 5 out of 7 start stretch where he was really bad, and then Eury Perez finished the season strong. I want to talk about his last 4 starts specifically. He went 3-1. Eury Perez did. It was 20 innings, 33 strikeouts over his last 4 starts. The sub-1 WHIP was great. A 2.70 ERA, and his fielding independent pitching, which is an ERA indicator, was in 1.09. So even though Eury Perez had that little tough start in the middle, and you see that 4.2 ERA, you might be a little bit discouraged. He finished the year strong. He responded after the league, bounced back to him. Matt gave you the in-depth breakdown there. I think Eury Perez has a lot of upside going into 2026. I'm hoping we don't have to pay that tremendous price of just for the talent when that ERA was a little bit high. The K per 9 was over, but still not that Eury Perez like K per 9 that he could produce. So hopefully the price isn't too high, because I definitely want some shares of Eury Perez in 2026. Let's move on to Eury's mentor and one of the longest tenured Miami Marlins. It's Sandy Alcantara. Now, Sandy, man, I hate to say it, but I honestly think that might be it for him. I'm not really buying back in 2026. I know he had some moments down the stretch where he looked better. I think he will be better than the numbers that he showed this season. Maybe if we can get him the value of being a dart throw as like your last starting pitcher, maybe I'll buy back in at that kind of value, but I really won't be buying back in on Sandy at much more than that. The numbers on the year was 31 starts for Alcantara, had 11 wins, a 5.36 ERA, a 1.27 WHIP, 174 innings, 142 strikeouts. And the thing with Sandy is we all got burned. He had a good spring training. We were all like, this can be it. He could buy back in. He's healthy again. And I kind of just think between the injuries over the year, he's, the innings that he had put on his arm, I think that's going to be, I don't know how much he's got left in the tank. He's 30 years old. If he could pitch to, let's say, like a high 3s ERA, I don't think he ever gets over that K per 9. It was just really the volume that gave him a good amount of strikeouts. The WHIP, maybe that's something that comes back in time, but I'm really not buying back into that either. The underlying stuff, nothing really screams to me that he can, course correct. The fastball velocity was still good, and he's still getting some ground balls, but pretty much everywhere else he was getting hit hard. He was getting barreled up. Wasn't getting a lot of whiffs or strikeouts, as we mentioned earlier. The exit velocities, that he was giving up were, tremendous. So not really a lot of bright spots here on the season for Sandy Alcantara. So if you're going into 2026, I probably wouldn't be thinking of him as anything more than a dart throw as your last starting pitcher.
So where I stand is kind of on the other side of the fence. Do I think there's some upside for 2026? Absolutely. And here's the deal. Dom, everything you said is 100% valid, and I'm not discrediting that. There's a way, there's a possibility. Ultimately, too, you didn't actually get burned because you drafted him as like your SP6 this year. You didn't have to pay, a top 5 pitcher for him, not even a top 100 pick for Sandy. So it's really not like a really strenuous thing. It was just a lot of upside riding on him. Now, things that can course correct him easily. Movement on his pitches, they're pathetic. Fastball actually had decent movement, but the breaking balls were as flat as can be. And the off-speed pitches definitely had some, improvement to be. Things that were positive for Sandy Alcantara's season in 2025 was the fastball velocity. Really didn't lose much, barely a half a mile an hour. Honestly, I think that that's great. He's always been a guy that's given up hard contact, but he suppressed quality contact against him. And he definitely didn't walk guys as much. He's never been a strikeout guy. He's only down about 4%, 5% of down from what he was in 2023, which was his amazing year. And never really been a guy that really just whiffs, but he just has a great handle and control of the ball. What I like about it too is he produces ground balls, still producing ground balls at 46.6% of the time. Those are things that, like, okay, if I had to say what could possibly go right for Sandy Alcantara, adjusting his grips, changing his release points, creating more movement on his pitches, and then producing more ground balls and being the same old Sandy Alcantara he's always been. So there's upside. Not paying a high price for him, and we're not going to have to, like Dom said. So is what it is. Coming up next, we got guys like Edward Cabrera, who I truly can't stand, and you'll find out why on the other side of this. All right. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live, the energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting tickets, that's the tough part, right? Queues, login screens, surprise fees. It takes all the fun out of it. That's why it's Game Time. The app gives you the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by Game Time's guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best prices. Plus, all fees are included in your price, right as you see it on the screen. So it's simple, and I love it. And quite honestly, I've been using it way longer than I've been working for Locked On. It's just an app that has always just been a great ticketing tool for me. And I love the zone deals too. You pick the section and they pick the seat and you say big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've ever bought tickets. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go to and download Game Time today. And all right. Let's hop right back into it. Let's talk about Edward Cabrera. Cabrera, I feel, has zero fantasy value for 2026 or for fantasy baseball in general in terms of a draft. Edward Cabrera, if you're not in a 15-man league or an NL-only league, he really is not your man. In mixed leagues, shallow leagues, forget about it. And I'm going to tell you why. He is too inconsistent. He has great stuff when he's on. I don't even need to give you underlying stats because, Edward Cabrera kind of will scream at you, oh, there's upside. He's like the Michael Harris at the pitching position. Oh, he should be a lot better. Oh, he should do this. Oh, he should do that. Cabrera's just Cabrera. Cabrera's good at Cabrera. When Cabrera's fantastic, when Cabrera's on point, he's going to be good. And when he's not, he's not. Cupcake matchup's going to roll him out there. I'm going to stream him. But in any other kind of aspect of the game, I'm not touching him with a 10-foot pole. So avoid Edward Cabrera in your drafts at all costs.
Damn, Matt, we're usually more in sync than this. I'm gonna take the opposite side of the stick with Edward Cabrera.
You also like Michael Harris. Bottom line.
That is true. I will admit Edward Cabrera is definitely not the most consistent starting pitcher out there, right? But we finally saw him take a step in the right direction in a few different spots this year. Health was one of the big spots. Gave us 26 starts this year, a career high. Also, gave us a strong ERA at a 3.53 ERA, 137 innings for Cabrera at well over that K per 9 at 150 strikeouts. The whip is something that I don't think Cabrera ever figures out. That's just his downfall. He's not really a strong whip guy. A 1.22 whip on the year, but that's still serviceable, numbers. Gave you the strikeouts, gave you the good ERA. The wins, Miami team is just not really in a position where they win games. So it's not like I'm expecting, him to give you a big win total. But I definitely would take Edward Cabrera over Sandy Alcantara, just in my personal opinion. I haven't gotten far enough in my starting pitcher rankings. I've gotten about 50 pitchers. Edward Cabrera hasn't made it on there yet. But I'm assuming, around SP 60-ish, is not going to be a bad spot to sort Edward Cabrera in. We saw changes in the pitch mix, which is something that shows like, hey, there's a reason for the better results. He buried his four-seam fastball. His four-seam fastball was like his second most used pitch. Buried it to his last most used pitch this year. Did gain velocity on it and saw a little bit better results. But still led with the changeup this year, which he normally did, did last year, got good results on the changeup per normal. The curveball took a big step up this year. Batters only hit 142 against Cabrera's curveball. The sinker, he needs to get rid of the sinker, man. Sinker's not a good pitch. It's never been a good pitch for him. Get rid of that. But the slider was really good. Batters only hit 207 against that. Got good movement on it as well. So I think there's a world where Cabrera, kind of keeps the ERA gain and could be around a mid-threes ERA guy. Obviously, he's going to be a strikeout machine. That's what he does. And the whip, if he could keep it around a 1.20 whip, we got somewhat of a good pitcher here. Thing is, I don't think we're going to have to pay much for him. So, if you just want to throw a dart your way, a dart his way at the end of your drafts in 2026, I'm not going to be mad at it.
So essentially what you're saying is if he got rid of 3/4 of his arsenal and threw the ball in the strike zone, he'd be really good.
No, that's not what I said at all. No, he only had one pitch that was really bad, just the sinker. Everything else was pretty good. He moved the fastball to his least used pitch. So
one, already removed one.
Yeah, no, just the sinker. That's it. Everything else he can keep in there. The sinker just was horrible. Everything else was pretty good for him. No, I know. But the sinker was a really bad pitch last year. The fastball, didn't get good results on it in 2024. He moves it down to his last used pitch, just that high velocity, 97-mile-an-hour fastball to throw off, those other good pitches. I think it could work for him. Like, I said, he's never going to be a whip master control kind of guy, so he's still going to get hit around every now and then. But I want to say think of, like, not prime Robbie Ray, but like Robbie Ray before he had gained the control, So we're talking about like a guy mid to high threes ERA, 1.20 whip with the strikeout. So, if you want to throw your dart at the end of your draft towards a guy who can give you some big strikeout numbers, potentially, at age 27, 28, still maybe a little bit of breakout upside, not banking on it, but you don't have to pay a big price for a guy like Edward Cabrera at the end of the day. But all right, let's keep things going. Let's move on here. Let's try and work through this last pitcher. Let's talk about Ryan Weathers a little bit. I think the problem with Weathers is the guy just can't stay on the field. When he's out there on the mound, he's usually somewhat solid. Mixed bag this year. Only 8 starts though, so I'm not buying like a crazy amount into it. 3.99 ERA, 38 innings pitched, 37 strikeouts. A 1.27 whip, but like I said, once again, injury issues. We'll even talk about Ryan Weathers' 2024, 16 starts, a 3.63 ERA, 86 innings pitched, 80 strikeouts, and a 1.17 whip. Now, Weathers does have good stuff. I want to see a full season from him. I think he's going to be another guy that people are going to want to take at the end of their drafts, and I'm not going to want to blame them, especially if Weathers has a good spring training. He's got, pretty solid stuff. He's got a big fastball, like Eddie Cabrera, sits at 97, follows that up with a changeup sweeper mix. I really like his sweeper, gets good results on that pitch as well. So it's really just a matter if Weathers can stay out there, he can stay on the mound and, just show us what he's got. He's still fairly young at, he was 25 this past season, so still only going to be 26 next year. Definitely somebody that, in your deeper leagues, your NL onlys, your deeper 12s, last pitcher kind of dart throw upside there for Ryan Weathers.
Not mad at that. He was definitely serviceable, and I feel like, if things would have swung in the right direction, he probably would have been on my team all year. Well said. Let's move on. Let's get Stowers in here real quick because I feel like he's going to be a long conversation. Stowers is somebody that, quite honestly, we didn't see coming. He definitely was not on my bingo card this year. Stowers is just a prospect that just either couldn't hack it in the bigs or just couldn't stay healthy. And, his minor league career was, decent, right? Like, mid-pack kind of batting average, went between 250 and had 2 seasons where he had 270 batting average, showed off a little bit of power, across a couple different levels and things like that, but ultimately just never really hacked it once he got to the bigs. This year, he kind of had a late age breakout at 27. Am I buying this for 2026? Some of it. I'll say some of it. Batting average being at 288? Absolutely not. Dude struck out way too much for me to say this is just, something he's just going to do. He struck out 27.4% of the time. Even with the 10.5% walk percentage, which also is not sustainable in all honesty, especially when you look at his plate discipline, and just like how many walks to actually strikeouts in a season. It's not sustainable. So we're going to see a negative regression in that. So that brings down his OPS. That brings down, the potential for him being driven in, all that wonderful stuff. And he's on a team where it's not really driven in. You look at that, you look at how often he whiffs, all this wonderful stuff, and it's like, batting average. I think I see him more like a 245 to 255 kind of batting average. Power, I think, is actually legit. All the underlying stuff says it. Says, hey, there is a potential for that. He gets really good quality contact on barrel percentage, even with negative regression going from 19%. And let's call it 14%, which is still elite, I might add. Mixed with it, how often he makes hard contact, which is absolutely repeatable. 100%, the power's buyable. Is he going to be a top 24 outfielder for me? No. Is he going to be a top 30 outfielder? No. Borderline 36 to 30 to 40, I think, is where the range I think is a sweet spot for him. I doubt ADP is going to match that, but that's where we're at. Coming up next, downside of Kyle Stowers, and also how amazing was Augustine Ramirez this year. That and more coming up next.
And all right, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you just don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the lines during live games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. FanDuel, got to get on there, guys. Come on, let's do it. And all right, let's jump back in. Kyle Stowers. Matt, I'm with you. Honestly, guys like this are usually the hardest guys for me to break down. A little bit of a late career breakout, but a lot of the underlying stuff is backing up what he did. Guys like this, I don't like to overpay for, just in case it's not real, right? I'd rather be left holding the bag on a guy like Kyle Stowers than being the dude that, has him ranked the highest. Matt, I think you're kind of right on the money. So far, I've got 40 outfielders ranked, and I don't have Stowers in there yet, but I usually keep the next 5 guys that I want to rank right there, and Stowers is in that group of next 5 up. So I think, a rank from, as Matt said, 35 to 45 at outfield in 2026 makes sense for Stowers. The power, as Matt talked about, definitely legit. The counting stats, actually solid. This Miami team, I think, can score runs, a little bit better than we actually think they can. And only 117 games for Stowers played to have 61 runs and 73 RBIs tells me he could have went 80 and 80, in 140, 150 games played. Batting average, once again, Matt hit the nail on the head. If he hits 250, 260, I think that's going to be a lot closer than the 288 batting average we saw this year. But so let's keep things pushing. Let's talk about Augustine Ramirez, man. He was really, really good. I loved that, when the league tried to figure him out a little bit, he bounced back, to them and made adjustments as well. And let's read off his numbers for the year. Ramirez, the catcher over there in Miami, 136 games played, 537 at-bats, 72 runs, 33 doubles, a triple, 21 homers, 67 RBIs, 16 steals, 36 walks to 113 strikeouts. Hurts you a little bit there in points leagues, but a 231 batting average. He didn't really kill you, in a year where catcher was, actually super, super deep. I think Ramirez, stood out in a nice way. I have Ramirez as a borderline catcher number 1 in 2026. I have as my 13th catcher. So he's kind of right on that precipice of being a number 1 catcher. So I'm not mad if you do want to wait at the position and take him. He had a nice little power speed combo. Counting stats are pretty good. The only thing he's really going to bother you a little bit is in batting average. And then once again, a few points leagues players, he strikes out a little bit and doesn't walk as much as I would like to see from somebody who plays the catcher position. But otherwise, a nice little option, 23 years old this past season. I think he could even grow into possibly a little bit more power. And like I said, it's just not necessarily going to expect too much in the batting average department, but I do like the power speed combo for Augustine Ramirez.
So he's going to be top 12 catcher for me this year, I think. Everything is kind of pointing to that way. I look at him and I go, well, he's probably the back end of the half of guys that are probably the most upside, and I think that's probably going to be at a reasonable price. This is a guy I usually target. Even with all the hype and the performance this year, he wasn't consistent enough for guys to really be, hyper focused on him. They can see the upside, but he's going to be a guy that you're going to be able to get cheaper in drafts. So he's a guy I'm going to be targeting wholeheartedly. Let's move on. You did a great job, Dom. Let's talk about Xavier Edwards. Him playing second and shortstop this year, gives him a little bit of ability to be good for your team in positions that are hard to fill. But where does he fulfill, your needs in 2026? Well, a very, very low pick. He is a discounted, low, light Nico Horner. Gets a lot of stolen bases, gets decent batting average. But the difference is no runs, no ribbies. Specifically, no runs. He's not on a team where he's going to be driven in. So that's kind of the downside of Edwards. And depending on where he's hitting in the lineup that day, it's also going to limit and hamper what he does. For points leagues, he's super, super valuable. Doesn't strike out a lot. Walks at a decent rip. And I think there's more improvement on there. Batting average is good. And quite honestly, he had 20 doubles this year and 5 triples. That's awesome in points leagues, and he's not getting negative outputs, plus the stolen bases and things like that. That's really the platform that I'd really be targeting Xavier Edwards. And then, you talk about even just like, deeper leagues, he's definitely more of a target. And if he's a stolen base guy at the end of the day, which I think you'll be able to get in like, the 150 range to 170 range and just pick him up as like your first or second bench bat for stolen base production.
Yeah, I like me some Xavier Edwards. I like your comp, Matt. I think I have a little bit of a better comp. I think he's a poor man's Chandler Simpson. Give him, like kind of like that comp. I don't think he's as quick as a Simpson, but you know what? He could steal you 30 bags. You're not really going to see much power. Runs, I think I'm going to disagree with you. 75 runs to 139 games isn't too bad. And Edwards let off a lot last year. So, if he kind of stays at that position, the team potentially gets a little bit better. He takes a step forward at 26. Wouldn't be mad if he played 150 games, had 90 runs, 5 bombs, 50 to 60 RBIs, 30 plus steals. And he's a good points leagues player too. He knows how to take a walk with 49 walks to 88 strikeouts this past season. I believe in the batting average. He had 283 this year, 298 career batting average guy, and that's through over 1,000 at-bats. So I believe in that. I like me some Xavier Edwards heading into next year, and I don't think we're really going to have to pay anything for him. At second base, I have Edwards at like 20. So literally not going to have to pay much for the guy, and I think he could be a plus in 3 out of the 5 major categories. So nice little sneaky pick, I think, at the end of drafts there. Let's move into a couple of prospects here. Matt, this one's actually your boy, so I don't know if you want to talk about him first. I'm going to give you the opportunity to do it. You're muted, though.
Well, thank you for reminding me. All right.
Of course, bro.
Thomas White. Pretty good prospect. I actually did not have him queued up, but I can in about 30 seconds. Really good prospect. Honestly, guy I scooped up this starting pitching prospect and has had a really good minor league campaign, and I think he'll be up this year in 26. The question mark is when. In the minors this year through literally 3 levels, A+, AA, and AAA, absolutely crushed it. 89 innings pitched, 145 strikeouts, a 2.51 ERA, and a 1.18 WHIP. Fantastic. Struggled a little bit in AAA, but it is what it is. He did jump quite a bit, but handled himself really well in AA, and got his predominant stats in there. And that's usually where great pitchers kind of live. And then surprised he even made it to AAA at that point. Thomas White is somebody that I think is primed and ready to go. He has some great stuff, and some good control. So ultimately, with Thomas White, I'm not going to be stashing him or anything of the sort, in drafts, unless I start hearing that there's that potential that he might even break camp. But if not, then, he's a guy I'm just going to be sitting on my waiver wires waiting to see until we get closer to the Super 2 and things like that. Miami has no reason to rush a prospect up. So ultimately, it's just a matter of when. If I had a guess, probably right after All-Star break. But who knows? Thomas White, if he gets the call up next year, he's on my team.
Yeah, Matt, good take on White. He's the 22nd prospect overall in baseball. He is Miami's #1 prospect, according to MLB.com. I like the stuff. He's worked on that fastball. He actually had a nice velocity jump. He used to sit around 92 to 95 with the fastball. He's got it up to 94 to 97. Has that nice curveball slider combo, too. I really do love his slider. Has not a nice break to it. But even the velocities, you got that curveball 78 to 82, and then you got that slider 81 to 85. So I like the separation of velocities throughout his three main pitches. He's a big lefty, 6'5", 240. And Miami's been really good with their starting pitchers over the year, so a lot of reasons to buy in. And I don't think that there's the spot for him because we have Braxton Garrett coming back from injury next season. But I think Thomas White is that next up. Yeah. But let's talk about Robbie Snelling before we head out. Another, top prospect here for Miami. Snelling is also a starting pitcher. And Snelling, makes a jump back after a down year in 24. Has a great year in 25, and Robbie Snelling is the 51st prospect in all of baseball, according to MLB.com. And on the season, through 2 levels in the minors, Snelling had 25 starts, a 2.51 ERA, 136 innings, 166 strikeouts. Batters hit 222 against him. He had a 111 whip. This is a guy, make sure he is not available in your Dynasty keeper leagues, because I think he's got good enough stuff that he should be owning those types of formats. Good slider, good fastball. Fastball at the top side around 95, 96. So he's got good stuff. Like I said, also throws a little bit of a slurve too, that slider curve combination kind of pitch. So, knows how to keep batters off their toes, but for time's sakes, that's really all I got around Snelling.
Yeah, I'll say this. I like Snelling, good prospect, trying to acquire him in Dynasty leagues. And maybe end of the year, if at all this year. But thanks, guys, for listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you can to share this show. And, we love bringing it to you each and every day. When you're done, make sure to check out the all-new MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Check us out. You can find it wherever you find your Locked On sources on YouTube or Apple or Spotify. Peace out, guys.
Well.